Hi everybody, hope all of you are doing good. In this video I will be running few benchmarks. Some will be graphic intensive benchmarks and the others they will be to evaluate the CPU performance of this iPad Pro 2024 with M4 chip. The reason I would like to do the benchmarks is evaluate the thermal performance of this iPad and also how good does the battery performs when it comes to the intensive tasks, especially the graphic ones, and that will kind of mimic the gaming performance of the iPad. So let's start with the 3D mark. So I will go with the graphic intensive benchmark first, and the one I'm going to be running is the Solar Bay. Solar Bay is a ray traced cross-platform graphic benchmark for iOS devices and support for Metal API ray tracing. So this is the one that will check the ray tracing performance and push the graphic card to its limit. Okay, the test will be a 20-minute test and it will run the benchmark in a loop 20 times. So it will take 20 minutes to complete the benchmark. So as you can see, the battery life is 76% and the time is 12:36. So I'm gonna run this benchmark, but before I start the benchmark I will reduce the brightness to half. This is normally how most of us use the iPad at the half brightness. Let's start the Solar Bay stress test. Okay, it has started. It will take 20 minutes. As you can see, it's in a loop. This is the first one out of 20. So I'll see you guys when we are in the last loop and we'll see the results then. Okay, we are done and let's see the scores. Let's first check the temperature of the device. So when it comes to the temperature, it is slightly, I will say, hot, but not very hot. It's definitely more towards the warmer side. Let me just increase the brightness now so you guys can see properly. Okay, so the best loop score we got 15015 and the lowest loop score we got 11194. What we can see here, so as we can see, the first loop was the highest score. The straight away it dropped after 1 minute, it dropped to in 11,000s, then 11,000, 11,000s, kept on there, and then at the last loop it jumped up to 12,679. So thermal performance consistent after the first loop, and I would say that it has dropped roughly 20% of the performance, something like that. So the battery life is 64%, which means that it has used 12% of the battery. When we started the test it was 76%, now 64%. Test did last for 20 minutes and the brightness was reduced to 50%. So if you are gaming and you are using the graphic cards to the max and the game support the ray tracing, then you will lose in 20 minutes 12% of the battery. So if you do the maths, you will get roughly 3 hours of battery life while intensively gaming on this iPad Pro 2024. Thermals, I think they're not bad, they're decent considering the thinness of the iPad. I think it's quite good. Yeah, let's run the second test. So 12% of the battery in 20 minutes. Let me just close this app. By the way, I took it out of the case when I ran the previous test. Let's do the Geekbench 6. We done the GPU test. Let's run the CPU one. Okay, let me just increase it and I'll see you when the test has been completed. Okay, we got the score for the Geekbench 6 CPU results. Single core score is a phenomenal score, 3695, and the multi-core score is 14306. Now compared to M1, the single core score in M1 it was 2304, roughly around 2300, and M2 single core score was 2600. So the jump from M1 iPad Pro 12.9 inch to M2 iPad Pro 12.9 inch was 300 points, and here more than 1000 points more over the M2. So when it comes to the multi-core score, the M1 iPad Pros they scored somewhere around 8500, and the M2 iPad Pros, they scored somewhere around 9,800 or 9,900, and here it's 14,306. One thing I would like to mention here, keep in mind that this iPad Pro with M4 chip is a 1 TB model, means it has 4 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores. So if you have an iPad Pro with 256 GB or 512 GB, your score might be slightly lower than this one. I believe that iPad Pro's 13-inch with M4 chip with 3 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores will score somewhere around 13,000. So when it comes to the temperature, it is not warm at all. And if you see the battery life, if you can see in the corner here, it hasn't even lost 1%. Okay, even though the last test said that it might be invalid or this or that, but I did the test before and I had the same results. Let's do the N22 benchmark and see what we get. So I ran it yesterday, but since then I have updated the iPad, and let's run the test again. Again, I have left the brightness at full and the battery life is 64% when we're starting this test. So we got the score for N22 and it is higher compared to what I did yesterday. As I mentioned before, I did updated the software last night. So the score we got is 298,441. The battery is up to 56% now. So we have lost around 8% of the battery in 10 minutes. This test took 10-11 minutes to complete. So we did lose around 8%. And temperature of the device, it's just slightly warm. I will not say that it is as hot as when we conducted 3D Mark test, but it is slightly warm. So compared to the last one, the Geekbench 6, this test N22, it does do video encoding, H.265, H.264, and does run few other tests as well. So it does include GPU testing in this benchmark as well. So when it comes to the GPU testing or GPU intensive tasks, it does drain more battery and it does get hot as well. So but when it comes to the CPU tasks, the CPU intensive tasks, then it doesn't drain that much battery and it doesn't get warm as well at the same time. Just quickly compare to the M1 iPad Pro score, the benchmark score, that was 1709057. If you can see here, let me just focus on that. And the M2 iPad Pro 2188966. So it's roughly, I would say, 40% increase. You guys can do the math, but I think that's what it is. So my conclusion, I think the performance when it comes to the CPU is excellent and the battery drainage is to minimum. The thermals work very well when you are just doing the CPU intensive task, but when the GPU jumps in, then it drains more battery. It gets slightly warm as well, but overall when you consider how thin this device is, I think it's an excellent performance by this iPad Pro. I am really impressed, especially by the CPU performance. So that's it for today's video. One thing I would like to ask you guys, if you have the iPad Pro, the new one, the 13-inch model with M4 bin chip, that means 256 GB version or 512 GB version, please run 3D Mark stress test Solar Bay one, which use the ray tracing and the N22 benchmark, and share the results in the comments. I will be interested in seeing how those iPads they are performing with one or less performance cores. Last thing I would like to ask you guys, please do consider subscribing. It does help channel a lot. I did not ask this in my last couple of videos, but I think it's necessary. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and you subscribing to the channel is definitely giving me a boost, and I'll see you in the next video. So take care. Have a good day. Bye bye.